Faithful Exiles is a podcast that explores life following Jesus Christ in South Africa. We want to think deeply about what the Bible has to say about life and talk about what that might mean in the situations God has placed us in. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those held by the host, co-host, or production team. As this is a discussion and not a pure teaching platform, it is up to the listener to engage with the content responsibly.
So, welcome to the next episode of Faithful Exiles, where we are interviewing Dr. Lieschen Venter. I'm going to read her bio and then we'll get straight into it. So, Lieschen Venter lives in Stellenbosch and is a lecturer of operations research, the so-called science of better. She completed her school career in Somerset West and immediately enrolled for a degree in the mathematical sciences at Stellenbosch University. She obtained a master's degree in economic management sciences funded by a bursary awarded by Sasol Technology. Contractually bound by the university, she relocated to Secunda, Mpumalanga, to work for Sasol's decision support group. During this time, she was also privileged to head up a local congregation planting team that is still strongly active today. It was during her church planting years that she was able to complete an honours degree in theology. After returning to Stellenbosch as an academic, she recently completed her PhD. Her dissertation describes a quantitative simulation model of the South African basic education system using a system dynamic modelling approach. Lieschen describes herself as a perpetually online and information glutton. She has a keen interest in both local and global politics, popular culture trends, cultural expressions of ideology, behavioral pattern recognition, and trend prediction using popular media. She hopes to remain a lifelong student as she continues to search for a satisfying theory of everything. Wow, okay, there's quite a lot in there. I think we'll start off with an icebreaker just for the fun, and then we can get into a bit more who you are and what interests you and the topic that we will be covering, which is culture watching. So is there was two options that I gave you. Is there first one or two?
I guess the one option was, what's the wildest conspiracy theory that I can think of, and
how to sell it.
And how to sell it. So I think I'm going to opt out of that one because I don't think there are any more conspiracy theories left. I think they've all proven themselves to be true, and those that haven't yet will still. So let me try the other one.
Okay, yeah. So let me read the other one. So the other one says, using the knowledge of cultural trends, if you were a heartless capitalist with no restrictions imposed, what product or service would you create or provide to become filthy rich?
I wish I had the imagination to come up with something new, but unfortunately I just have the observational skills to know what's coming anyway.
Okay.
So instead of thinking up something new to get filthy rich, I think I would just try and buy in what is coming anyway. And they weren't joking when they said, we won't own anything and we'll be happy. The speed with which the metaverse is now developing is we will be fist fighting each other, to go into the pod and to just suck on a liquefied cockroach for the privilege to not own anything, but in your mind own everything. I mean, the speed now with which the metaverse is developing, I don't know if you saw that, the latest podcast with Mark Zuckerberg and Lex Friedman. It was easy to laugh at the metaverse when it was little cartoon characters without legs, but the new avatars are photorealistic. Lex Friedman's podcast room is like black, and he's got black curtains, and he's got the guest there.
Yeah.
And they had half of the podcast going before people realized it wasn't them. It was hectic. Their avatars. They were sitting in different states in different rooms with goggles on.
Okay.
And they were interviewing, and the photorealistic reactions and facial expressions, you can't tell. With the latest version of the metaverse, you can't tell. I mean, we just took a giant leap towards never having to physically see each other again, and yet still seeing photorealistic renderings of each other's faces. So, I mean, where does that go? That goes to your photorealistic living room and your photorealistic anything you want to own. You don't actually physically have to buy it. When we get the Neuralink, when we get Elon Musk's Neuralink, you could be sitting there in a dodgy little room with your goggles on. Somebody puts a plate of mushed cockroaches in front of you, but the Neuralink tells you exactly like Cypher in the Matrix. This is the rarest, most tender Wagyu steak that you could ever imagine. And it costs nothing because it's insects, but your brain doesn't know that. So I think we're on our way there anyway. So if I had to get into something to get filthy rich right now, I guess it is harnessing people's desire to escape the reality, the desert of the now, the desert of the real, and get into that unlimited digital renting. Unlimitedly being, you can rent to people any wardrobe they've ever wanted. You don't actually physically have to manufacture it. Yeah. You can give them any entertainment they've ever wanted. You can make them believe they're on any island they could ever want to visit. You don't have to invest in airplanes. You don't have to invest in production or factories or farms or anything. You don't have to own property. You just render it digitally and you rent it to people's minds, and they can go hallucinate on your product.
And then who's going to make who's going to be the support staff? They're going to have to make sure that those products work.
Yeah.
So how are they going to be supported?
Have you seen the new Olivia Wilde movie? She directed it. What's it called? Good Luck, Darling, or Don't Worry, Darling. Have you seen that? Florence Pugh, Harry Styles.
They're like in this little city, like a mine. It seems like a mining town, but it's not.
Yes, and it's
trying to remember what
perfect.
happens.
It's 1950s Americana, and it's absolutely flawless. The women are docile, and they get to stay at home, and they never fight with their husbands. But heaven, there's no shortage of anything. Everything is beautiful, and then the men have to leave every day, and the women don't know where the men go. Have you watched it to the end?
I guess spoiler alert,
Yeah, so spoiler alert. It turns out that they're in a simulation, and their husband, these wives' husbands, have put their minds in the simulation where they can just be perfect 1950s housewives and just live the dream. But in return for that, the men have to leave the simulation every day and go do their 8 hours in the real world to go be programmers, go be coders. So the men leave and they go sit in the grey desert of the real. They go sit in hell for 8 hours coding, so that just at night they can just return. Yeah, they can just return. So I suppose it would be like that. It would be, people would be willing. I mean, how's that so different from modern life? We sit in cubicles working spreadsheets for 8 hours a day, just so that we can go away on weekends. How would that be different coming to grey reality for 8 hours a day so that we can return to the simulation? We do it already.
Okay. So you're saying the crazy idea is not too far from being realized?
No, it's only a matter of time. And it's so depressing because we can say, no, I'll never opt in. No, not me. Until you drive up to the checkers and they say, oh, sorry, we only take Neurobucks here, I don't have Neurobucks. I have rands. Yeah, sorry, where's your Neuralink? It's 2043. Who doesn't have a Neuralink? Me. How do we not make fun of people without cell phones now? How many people said never? I'll never opt in.
I'm too young to know the people who didn't opt into cell phones. Was there like a big community that was against it?
Massive. The meme joke was always, I don't want somebody to be able to contact me when I'm sitting on the loo. That was the meme joke.
Okay.
No, never, not me. I'll never get a cell phone. I don't need it. The world's moved on, and it will be the same with Neuralink. We're all now freedom fighters. I will never get the Neuralink. Yeah, good luck. Good luck until you can't buy groceries because the cashier can't see you.
Okay, on to something lighter. So, maybe to get to know you a bit better. Maybe a fun childhood memory or what was childhood like, or I hear you from Somerset West, it says. I don't know that. So, Somerset West or Somerset West?
I had that when you said you were going to ask about that, I thought of that Dr. Evil monologue where he starts talking about his Belgian father who he claimed he invented the question mark. I was like, am I going to memorize that speech? And no, I won't be silly about it. I mean, childhood is childhood, I don't think I enjoyed it, but I think I have quite a neurotic bent, so I don't think I really enjoy anything. So maybe my memories are quite tainted.
So you didn't have like a cute puppy or a fluffy cat?
That is my happy thought.
Okay.
We always had pugs.
Oh,
and
pugs.
Yes,
You're a pug family.
I'm on my 6th pug dog now. Got the first one I think when I was about 4 or 5, and we've just always had pugs. And that I can talk for 10 hours about the glory of pugs, which I know it's controversial because people say that they're bred, with health problems and that it's unethical to breed them and to own them, but they are wonderful. They're the best companions you will ever have. I mean, where a pug has dug me out of holes of depression, because can I tell you why? Because pugs were bred to be court jesters. So
that's interesting.
Yes, you know how border collies, they have this instinct to herd. Even if it's school children or it's ducks or it's their toys, they want to herd. And golden retrievers want to retrieve. Like, have you seen a golden retriever just out of pure frustration fetch a sock because it just has to fetch something? Now, pugs have bred into them the inherent desire to make you laugh. Because they were court jesters in China. That's why they have that little stupid bread shape, because they used to sit in the emperor's sleeve. So they kind of evolved to be sleeve shaped so that they could just line your sleeve all day. And they have this instinct to figure out what makes you laugh. So they try all kinds of different things. And then the thing that makes you laugh, they remember. And then they repeat it. And then they riff on it. So in terms of a therapy animal, you will not find a better companion than a pug dog. They are hilarious. My pug makes me laugh every day. So I guess that's my favorite childhood memory, is just always being surrounded by pugs. I remember laughing until I nearly split my sides at all my pugs. They are so funny. So if you're looking for a dog, and people are starting to more ethically breed them now. I see there's a big movement in the community to actually select for longer muzzles and longer legs and things. So there is an active attempt to try and rehabilitate the species. So
it's a lot cheaper than a horse.
I freaking love it. I love pugs, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And studies in Korea, so you studied at Stellenbosch more than one degree.
Yeah.
And then Korea, you went away, but then you came back to lecture here.
Yes.
So, I don't know, do you feel a bit like, what do they call it, the boomerang generation? Where you leave with a massive speed and then come back?
I lost my temper with Sassel though. It became very corrupt, and I really had to make difficult decisions about the money was ridiculous. Your starting salary is what most people only earn at a very high senior level. When the oil price rises, then they're actually in a very good position because they're an alternative energy source. At that point, the oil price was so expensive, and Sassel, we were printing money. It was making it rain every month. But then you reach a point where I really had to face myself and figure out, how expensive is looking the other way, and I just couldn't anymore. And I was really grateful when the position opened up at my home department where I got my degrees. And my master's supervisor at the time, I hadn't done my PhD yet, so he said, there's a position opening up. I was like, yes, I'm there tomorrow. So, I remember my colleagues thought I was insane for giving up, getting a spot at Sassel is already quite difficult.
Okay.
But you have to do what you have to do. I sleep much better at night now. So the second years drive me crazy, but at least I'm not, committing corruption. So it's much better now.
Out of interest, what was the coolest thing you bought with the crazy money you got? Or the funnest?
Experiences, really, not the assets. Because Secunda is Mordor. It's 30 square kilometers of piping. I'm not even kidding. It's just black piping, and they flare the excess gases, to keep the balance in the plant. So these flare flames are 20 meters high. It really is like the eye of Sauron. It never sleeps. There are smells in that plant that does not sleep. So everybody gets very depressed in Secunda because there's nothing to do. There's like one ice cream pink casino where the locals would go. But then with all of this excess money, you're young working, you're single, you've just got, all of this excess money.
Splash.
And then Sodwana would be 3 hours to the east, so you could go diving. The Kruger would be 4 hours to the north. Durban would be 4 hours south. The city, Johannesburg, would be 2 hours east. So you kind of on a Friday, and they let us get off at 1 o'clock on Fridays just to maintain our mental health, and we were encouraged to get out of the town because it really is very depressing. You just never stop smelling cabbage. After a while, it really drives you crazy. So I guess that was the best part, was just that Friday. You have no idea what adventure will be next. Will we go diving, or we go skydiving, or we go see the animals in the park, or we go see the sharks in Durban? Which way? Okay. So that was fun. Yeah. And
I'm guessing it won't be like older family type people. It'll be young type people that haven't decided to settle down, and then they're keen to do fun things. I guess.
Cool. They were established families, but then they would just invest in their house. So there's these mansions. It's a very weird town. It's very, very weird. Special, but it's a bit of a fever dream thinking I stayed there for 5 years.
Is it worth Google Mapsing at least? Taking the Google Map key around?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I'll check it out at some point. Okay. So you said, or in your bio it says you helped do a church or start a church plant, and that's in Secunda, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. What was that like? Was that? I know my mom always says she's got some experience with mining towns, for instance. It's quite rough characters. That are there.
It's rough.
So I can imagine Sasolburg or Secunda similar.
No, Secunda, like you go to a fight and you hope a braai starts, It's really rough. It's like the dogs walk 2 by 2 because they're scared of the children. It really is a very rough place. But at that point I was a member of a Pentecostal church who part of their vision was church planting. It was one of the discipleship milestones in your life is, can you call yourself a disciple if you haven't discipled, and have you planted a church? So what Sasol does is they don't really hire from outside. They grow their own wood. So they prefer to give bursaries so that they get young engineers. And then they would rather train them up in the graduate development program. So I started just figuring out, am I the only person going from my cohort? Am I going to be lonely? Am I going to have friends? And I started finding more and more people from church who had the same bursary and who also were contractually bound. They also had to go to Sasolburg or Secunda at least 2 years. And then when I saw how many of us were going, I thought, okay, if we might as well start planting a small group at least. And from the small group, maybe a church could start. So my 2 housemates and I, we planted this church in Secunda. Our first service was the 3 of us with like a little Hillsong CD and a recorded sermon, and we did it properly. We were so serious. We took the collection and everything from each other, these 3 housemates. And it just slowly grew. You meet people, you invite them. Sunday we're having a service in our lounge, and then 3 people become 8, and then you get some plastic chairs, and then 8 people become 12, and then
you have a mega church.
Yes. And then you can really pass the collection plate around. So that was lots of fun, And then it grew. It got very, very not big but established. We had. By the time I left, we had 70 or 80 regular congregants, which I was very proud of. And then what helped was, I don't know if you saw Survivor South Africa 2018. I think it was 2018.
No.
The local pastor there, he came from Stellenbosch to come help us, and he stayed in Secunda, and he entered Survivor, Werner Hubert.
Okay.
And he did so well. He won fan favorite in the end. We thought he was going to win the Survivor series. I think he came second, and he won fan favorite. And obviously, then small town, everybody wants to be in the celebrity pastor's church, and then the church numbers went.
Okay.
But he's also back in. He's in Hermanus now, and the church is still standing. So. I guess that's the true test, you know, if you can get a next generation to buy into your vision. If all of the first generation can leave and some second or third generation can keep it alive, I think that's
and
maybe...
wants to.
And they're still going strong, yeah. I think they're under Pastor Brown, Vian Brown is the pastor there now, and I think, I think they're doing well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool to be part of having started something.
It was such a special time. It really was. Just no idea what we were doing. So many mistakes, but so much grace. We didn't know what we were going to do for a band. We were listening to CDs, you know, and after a while people are like, yeah, but, you know, can somebody strum a guitar here? We didn't know what we were going to do. So then the next thing, somebody from Stellenbosch gets a position at their flying field there. Yes, there's a flying field. And he becomes a pilot trainer. Turns out he can play every instrument 4 times over. So he could teach us how to play the drums, and he could teach us how to play instruments. If we couldn't, then, you know, guitars, and he could do everything. So we had pretty much a one-man band just arrive at our church plant one day, and we're like, oh, okay, that was easy, you know. So much faith. Like, I feel you just prayed for something, you just knew it was going to happen. You need somebody that can be a drummer. Oh, here's somebody that can be a drummer. Anyway, carry on. You know, I think we just accepted so much grace as a given. Like, yeah, of course God will send a drummer. You know, now in retrospect, now that I'm older, I'm like, we just accepted God's going to send these things that we need. And he did. And then we were like, okay, anyway, let's carry on. You know, like he was a member of the team. It was so natural. So it was a very special time. I really enjoyed it. I learned so much.
Oh, yes. The other thing I wanted to ask, you're part of Crux. What is Crux? It's actually where I met you in 2016. What? I'm not going to try to define it. You define it. What is it? Is it worth going to? Is it worth doing? You're obviously involved in it, so you would think it is,
yes.
hopefully. So what is it? And give us a bit of a flavor.
So on the website, you'll see our tagline is a Center for Spiritual Formation. So it is we're working our way towards, I think, a Christian study center. Right now, it's more a Libre model. We want the lounge to be a safe space where a completely non-denominational, faith-based, you can come ask any questions. Believers, unbelievers, we have JB there. I mean, JB is qualified 100 times over to take any theological question and really understand it and lay it out. But what we saw, I came back from Secunda in 2015. And at that time, Fees Must Fall was very big on campus. And it was almost also the political awakening of that cohort of students at Stellenbosch. There was an article in The Atlantic, which is a US publication, that first started talking about the woke culture on campus. And the first fights that they had was with Halloween costumes, appropriating cultures with Halloween costumes. And
that was the blackface thing, right?
It was there was a letter that a member of faculty sent to the student body, because the student body said that they want more control over what costumes the students may wear. And the faculty member wrote a letter back and said, you know, freedom of speech and expression, not on this campus. And it blew up. It became a huge protest in that the boomers don't understand. And that was the first time I think that American boomers were like, what's wrong with the kids? Like, why are the kids being funny? And everybody started writing think pieces about what is happening, what is woke, what does any of this mean? And then at the same time at Stellenbosch, we had the Fees Must Fall. And in church, no one knew which way to fall because everything sounded righteous. Here's some liberation. I guess Christians like liberation, but here's also some revolt. I guess Christians don't like revolt, but when is rebellion just? And when is overcharging, you know, evil? And shouldn't we stand up? And so I just had all of the students. At that point, I was teaching Bible school at the church. And all the students were asking me all these cultural questions. And suddenly I had to think, but philosophically, how do we think about this? What are the underlying ideologies? What are the underlying theological principles? How do I guide these students? And I was overwhelmed. And Sir Vos Hofmeyer, who's also at Crux, he's one of the most intelligent men I know. So I asked Sir Vos to just help me speak to these students. Maybe we should just do little get-togethers and invite them. And so Sir Vos and I started Hot Dogs and Dialogues, which was...
It's not a Christian event unless it's cheesy.
Right, and there's food.
Yeah.
No one comes to the Christian events unless there's free food. So we traded hot dogs for dialogues, that if you came, then you got like, and we were quite poor, so all we could afford was like white bread and pink Viennas and that Lumo pink tomato sauce that you get from the spa. But we would give you a hot dog for your dialogue, and then we invited students to come be honest about race. And that time, 2015, people still didn't struggle with gender, not yet, but race was a big thing, and class was a big thing. And then obviously now, are we antagonistic towards the university? How can we, when we're at Pentecostal Church based on campus? Most of our congregants are students. Do we raise our fist against Stellenbosch, or what are the right things to think about this? So we started turning to JB more and more also for theological support. And that really was the roots of Hot Dogs and Dialogues, that then JB combined with the arts ministry that he had started with AD and Heidi.
Okay.
And we saw that there is actually a need for a collective space where people can come and can be honest. Because at the same time, he was also dealing with artists who were struggling to find their place in traditional church, to feel valued and seen and understood. And we were dealing with young people who wanted to revolt but didn't know. So I think the theme initially was just awkward Christians who didn't know where to go. And so we realized we needed a safe space for Christian formation. And that's how Crux started. So initially, Crux Thursdays was JB teaching. He would do Romans. He took us through books of the Bible. He
Mark as well?
Yes, he did Mark. He did Revelation. So initially it was him teaching. And from our inputs, and also I think because he was burning out a little bit, he started asking regulars, can't you just take Thursday night? You can talk about anything. Just take it and we can start talking about it. And obviously because I'm culture obsessed and technology obsessed and I have these things that I want to talk about, I would bring my difficult topics and Sir Vos would bring his philosophical topics. And at that time, Sir Vos had just done a master's in the UK in philosophy. So he came back with all of this knowledge. And so it became more and more inviting people to come share what they are thinking about rather than us teaching them what they should be thinking. And through that, the dialogue started. So that's the Crux Thursdays section of Crux. And then the arts section developed by itself into the artist gathering and into all of the activities that they have. So at Crux, we get together, we talk about culture, philosophy, politics, technology, anything. We're trying to ramp up with more like outdoorsy things, like we're trying to do more hikes together or beach days together, more socials together, because I think people feel quite intimidated that it has to be this theoretical lecture every Thursday. It's not our heart at all. It's kind of what it turned into, just because our members are so educated. It does turn into a very intellectual exercise.
It becomes a lecture.
Yes, and that's not our heart, but we'll get there. We're still figuring it out, but everything is just developed organically. So it is difficult to explain to people what Crux is, because it changes. It's still finding its feet. It's a teenager now. I mean, it's turning a couple of years old now. I think it's 8 now, and before that, Dialogues was maybe 3 years. So, I don't even know how you ended up there.
How did I end up there? So I was doing masters then, so I had more free time. So then you have time to look around, and then how did we end up? I don't even know where I met JB, but it was through him that somehow I ended up there. And then it was I think the Romans Bible study or the Mark Bible study that we were doing, and it was nice because it was like a qualified pastor / theologian teaching, and not like a student that has to prepare, say a week beforehand. So that was quite cool, because that's more or less what I'm used to. Excuse me. So, and that kind of really drew me in, and then seeing how much there is in, say, Mark or Gospel of Mark or Romans. And then, I think it was only later that it morphed, like you said, into the kind of presentations on certain topics, which are awesome, I think. It's usually quite creative. It's never just like some boring, here are my 3 points about ABC. It's like, oh, this is, I experienced this, and I've been reading this, and, I conclude this, but also what about this? And then it's cool for dialogue afterwards.
Yeah.
I really don't know how I ended up there. But definitely I can appreciate that it's more than just one line of thinking, if I can call it that.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a bit of technology, thinking about technology, there's thinking about philosophy, there's thinking about theology, there's thinking about art. Pulling all those things together that's, I guess, the human experience. We are confronted with all those things, even though we not necessarily consider it our niche, but we have to make sense of all the things. We don't get to say, oh, all I want to deal with is technology. You have beauty and science and all these things that you have to contend with. Yeah, so it's awesome. I think it's like great for Christian thinking.
Yeah.
To start thinking about the bigger world view or how your worldview impacts other aspects.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it's going to become still. It's been morphing every year, so let's see.
Yeah, next thing it's probably going to become a rock climbing club.
Imagine, probably.
Let's get into the culture watching aspect of this discussion. So culture watching is one of your, what do you say? It's not a hobby, I guess. It's more like a interest of yours.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is a hobby.
Yeah.
Do you sharpen your tools of culture watching, or do you just do it?
No, like I said, I'm just perpetually online, and it's it's impossible to be online 24/7 and not bump into every aspect of culture. So no, I don't seek it out. It's like a fish living in water. You're surrounded by it. It's just noticing and finding patterns. So I'm grateful. I kind of feel like my undergraduates in statistics and optimization, it does help you see patterns at least. I often joke with people that I'm an overthinker, so don't give me not enough data, because I know how to interpolate and I will interpolate the missing bits. So don't test me with this and I will extrapolate into the future. So rather just give me too much data, because I will fall in the rest. So I guess it's just noticing patterns, just being aware, because everything makes a pattern, and once you see it, then you're like, oh, then you know what's coming next.
Okay, so you would say the importance of it is nearly, in some sense, predicting where or being prepared for what's coming. Yeah, that's the one question. It's like, one can do it, and one does it, I guess, if one just watches or opens one's eyes. But is the benefit of it semi-aligning yourself or disaligning yourself with where this whole trend of whatever the culture is doing is going?
Yes, I think being aware at least enables you to decide whether you want to be a part or not. If you're not even aware, you just get swept with the current and you end up somewhere and you're not really sure how you got there. I don't think it's a happy way to live. I have lots of conversations with, Jono and Otto from Crux. And the two of them especially are very protective over there. If it's not beautiful, don't look at it. If it's not edifying, if it doesn't make your soul sing, don't look at it. And I wish I could live like they do. And I think they do make the better choice. I think they are both very informed, but I think if they could choose, ignorance is bliss. Just read the poetry and enjoy the tree. Don't worry about, what Zuckerberg is doing with his metaverse. I have tried it and I failed. So I guess that's my role. I'll look and obsess and lament. and then luckily we have Jono and Otto to remind us about the beautiful things.
You work at Stellenbosch University. What do you observe in the current student culture that's maybe different to when you were studying, that's maybe disturbing or interesting? obviously you have a lot of interaction with the students, so you can probably speak quite authoritatively on this.
Maybe I'll compare it to 3 phases instead of just when I was studying versus now, because it's been a while since I studied, and campus was a completely different place. Just the demographics was so different. Afrikaans culture is so different from Anglo culture, and campus is pretty much, I would say, 70% Anglo now.
And by Anglo you mean English? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Is that what? Why do you call it Anglo?
Because
English
is anybody that speaks English, you know.
Okay,
but I'm talking like heritage passport holders, you know. Anyone that has a way out, that is still secretly holding on to that British or Irish or French, or you know, that. So I guess when I say Anglo, I mean white students with heritage
from
passports. Mostly from Joburg, but yes, you know, they're all called Kyle and Taryn and Megan, and it's a completely, English culture is so different.
It's different to Afrikaans culture.
Yes, and you see now, for example, Mystic is closing. Did you know?
Serious?
Yeah, they have their last party the 31st. Yep.
Of this month.
Yes, and it's just because they don't have enough clientele.
Where am I going to play pool?
I'm telling you, and I mean that is
pizza.
It's just, you know, English students don't go to Mystic. It's just not their culture. They like clubs, so they just not. I mean, Mystic came from Bloemfontein. You know, it's like. So anyway, let me get off of that topic.
Mystic Boer is, for the context, is the club in Stellenbosch that. I don't know, what do? They have like a pool area and like some couches, and then they're upstairs. They have
it's just a really nice kuierplek. And anyway, they're closing, so you must go if you want to say goodbye. I mean, can you imagine explaining to like Afrikaans Stellenbosch that the Mystic Boer wouldn't ever make it? It's unthinkable, and yet here we are. So I think if I compare it to I'd rather compare it to when I first started teaching in 2015 versus who I'm teaching now in 2023. 2015, with the rise of a general acceptance that there's no objective truth, you know, when kids started getting confused now, like I said, when they were asking us our advice, and everything depends, you know, well, it depends on this and it depends, right, but what's the always right answer? And as what we imported was a nihilism from America, is with the loss of objective truth, that subjectivity eventually leads to nihilism. Just if nothing means anything, then what's the point of anything? What are we busy with? But what I saw, I think, they were still very, very late millennials. So they were the last of the millennials that I think I was teaching 15, 16. And it was a nihilism combined with depression almost, with low energy sadness, a lament for the loss of meaning. Where what I see now, it's the Zoomers have replaced lament. It's the Gen Z or the Zoomers. Of course. They've replaced lament with absurdism. And this I almost don't know what to do with. It is nothing matters, and it's hilarious. And they all have face tattoos, not all, but you know, they have face tattoos of Pickle Rick, and this is the funniest thing ever. You know, or they have Handsome Squidward as a tattoo. Can you imagine getting Handsome Squidward on your arm forever because it was funny at the time? The memes that they enjoy, it's almost indecipherable for my generation. It is Shrek in like dominatrix latex, you know, or it's Elsa and Spider-Man. that
Sorry, Elsa?
Elsa from Frozen,
Okay,
Princess
yeah,
Elsa,
yeah.
and then Spider-Man, and then it's some very badly rendered, because they ironically are back at really badly rendered CGI graphics. So they make their memes with
Lo-fi.
these very lo-fi, very badly rendered square. And then, I don't know, it would be Elsa and Spider-Man doing something. And it's hilarious. I mean, have you seen Skibbity Toilet?
No, I live under a rock, no.
Please do yourself a favor.
Okay. Skibbity
Google
Toilet.
Skibbity Toilet. That is the most watched meme right now. You can ask any Zoomer boy if he likes Skibbity Toilet. It is the funniest thing.
So when you say meme, I just want to make sure what I think of a meme, it's like, it's always, that frog, like either Pepe the Frog, saying something and looking sad.
Yeah.
But when you say meme, you mean like a general bunch of people who generate like such memes, but like it comes from a certain house, a certain school of thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's an idea that caught the collective consciousness. Like a gene gets passed on, the meme gets passed on or propagated through population. And so I guess that scares me a little bit, because at least with the generation that lamented the loss of meaning, you could see there was a sadness for something lost, but with the absurdism, nothing means anything, and it's so funny, and it scares me when you think that they're going to combine it with the metaverse, where it's just going to be normal to choose your permanent avatar and you are now a head of cabbage. And that's it, And this is who you are. And you're going to attend your work meetings as a cabbage with eyes. And if anybody says that you should, this isn't you, then you say, okay, but who says this isn't me? This is the cabbage self. I am cabbage. My pronouns are leaf and, root. and who gives you the right to say that I'm not a cabbage? And that world, you'll be walking down the metaverse and world, and there'll be a carrot and a cabbage, and then there'll be Dracula and a Godzilla, and it'll just be hilarious. So that's the longest way I can say is I think the culture right now is nihilism combined with absurdism, and it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit like dealing with 200 little jokers, that. When in that movie, The Dark Knight, when he sets that big pile of money on fire, and he says it's not about the money, it's about sending a message. They have a recklessness to them. If I just see they don't hand in assignments, and then when I say, where's your assignment? They'll say, oh no, not for me, thanks. Like I'm offering them dessert or something. This is a quarter of your term mark, and then they'll laugh. Everything is just hilarious all the time. It's very scary.
But isn't it? Yeah, I mean, if everyone's a joker, then nothing's funny anymore, doesn't it? It gets to that point. My sister married an American, and they stayed in California for a while. And he'd say, Jürgen, it's crazy. You go down, is it Venice Beach? One of those beaches there, and like everyone just is weird. But then, like if everyone's weird, you're just like, yeah, whatever. You'd like block it out after a while.
Yes.
If you walk in the Platteland, you see a dude with purple hair, you're going to be like, what the heck?
Exactly.
And yeah, so if everyone's sending like these bizarre messages, then it's going to get lost. Like you just turn the noise up and you turn the truth down, essentially, or the impact down.
Yes.
So do you foresee that happening, or do they nearly see that happening themselves? Like they now got this tattoo that's pretty bizarre, but now 10 other classmates also did, so it's not trendy, or it's trendy, but it's not avant-garde anymore.
I don't think so, because I don't think they're doing it for the trend or for the recognition. I think it's just to feel something, anything, even if you just made yourself laugh for a minute, and now it's sitting there. I don't think they look at their peers who also look silly and think, oh, I guess I'll be countercultural and just shower for once. It's it's also just drug fueled, but it's not as bad in South Africa as it is in America. That is a thing, is we still as much as I complain, you know, South Africa is still very rooted in conservatism, and I think you also said, you know, we must be careful we don't just speak about culture like this global, everybody has the same culture, even though that's where the internet is pushing us to be. There's lots of grace in South Africa still, lots of grace. There's a lot of, I think our boomers maybe still push back harder than I think American boomers push back. I think American boomers have just written off their Gen Z children as crazy and good luck out there, you know, like we're just going to enjoy our inheritance this side. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think South Africa will get that bad yet. I don't think South Africa will look like Venice Beach soon.
There's always a chance you're going to walk into some shop that's ultra conservative, or you're going to walk into an area where you now get looked at very funny by maybe intimidating people or aggressive people.
That's it. That's exactly it. Because Stella and I have this long-running debate. Does culture follow law, or does law follow culture? You know, the Breitbart says that law is downstream of culture. And I think I tend to agree with that. And so Stella and I we always talk about it in that as long as you have the ability to still have stigma, and I think that's the big problem with culture, is we've normalized everything. Absolutely everything is acceptable. Going to the airport in your pajamas is fine because that's what you're comfortable in. We've blurred categories. You know, pajamas is for the bedroom. What is it doing at an airport? Or, you know,
sleep on the airplane, so it's fine.
Going grocery shopping in your slippers. And so Stella would say, you know, okay, but then shouldn't we have a rule or a law, you know? And where I would say, no, you need to push with shame. Stigma still needs to exist. Like, you need a society where enough people look at you funny for being in your pajamas at the airport that it becomes difficult for you to even want to wear pajamas at the airport. Definitely. But then, obviously, you know, Stella, she's in like an arts lecture. She would say, yeah, good luck trying to get anywhere, trying to shame my students. They will revolt against that. So it's a very difficult debate. That what do you control the culture, or do you control legislation, and which one comes after which? Like the causal inference of that, I don't know yet, but I have a feeling culture is more powerful than legislation.
Okay, shame or legislation, and I was thinking of in South African context, the drinking and driving being a real problem. I think our police can't always keep up with how much drinking and driving happens. And we know, or we've probably all been in conversations where someone will mention or allude to the fact that, you know, that other weekend they had one too many and they drove home, and kind of like a throwby comment. But yeah, I think if in that group of friends, if someone would say, yes, man, you're I don't know, say something very shameful, you're potentially a killer, or you could have driven over my grandma, or I don't know what, you could have killed the local cat. That'll maybe get more eyeballs. That people would maybe think twice about drinking and driving in that case, instead of the 1 in 200 chance that they're going to get stopped by a policeman who's maybe going to be gracious on the evening. So I would maybe have to lean towards the shame aspect. And the thing is, like you said, people are going to revolt against someone pushing shame on you, but at some point they have to realize, I guess, what they are. If the shame comes out of a realistic point, like, oh, your hair looks funny, is like one thing, but oh, you changed your face to look like an alien, that's maybe, you know, one would maybe listen to reason when making such changes.
I don't know how you can live in South Africa and still believe that the law has any power.
That's maybe in the US, like the law is upheld and revered. So maybe your argument is more fitting for a different country. Anyways, Okay, so you enjoy observing culture. What cultural trends have you observed that are maybe interesting or concerning or strange, that you've actually gone down the rabbit hole significantly and come out the other side maybe with an answer against it, or maybe, like you said, just sadness about it, or maybe a silver bullet to end it.
Yeah, I think the warfare of our time is there is a very active endeavor for dehumanization, to destroy anything that makes us human.
Yes.
And it's partly that's just what technology does. Technology dehumanizes. And partly there is lots of profit to be made through harnessing and destroying human nature. And I think that's sad. It's just the speed now with which we don't need each other. We don't need to be human. We're not bound by the natural law of what we created to be, because we have so much power in technology now. I never need a friend to take me to have my car serviced. I get an Uber. I never need somebody to just quickly pop down to the Checkers to help me get some milk or whatever. I just call Checkers 6060. Almost every single service that I can imagine that maybe even just 5 years ago I would have to at least ask someone to help me, I've been completely liberated from having to need anyone. And the problem with technology is that the more you use it, the more you have to use it. Every time I don't ask a friend for a lift, then I have fewer friends I can ask for a lift. So it's almost a vicious cycle that perpetuates itself, in that every time I use technology instead of a human, I have fewer humans that I can use, and I need to rely more on the technology. Even if you think just what we've done to our memories, the fact that we do have these supercomputers in our pocket all the time, because I never use my memory, I don't have to use my memory, to the point where I think I know only my own phone number.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
You used to be able to know your parents' home number, cell phone number.
Yeah, I took my pug to the vet and they wanted my mom's phone number because the pug is still, and I didn't know it. I had left my phone in the car. I had to walk all the way to the parking lot to go fetch my phone because I didn't know my own mother's phone number. And that's just the reliance on technology. And I see it speeding up. Absolutely, there's such a grand project to ensure that we are independent of each other. Because if we are independent of each other, then we're just interchangeable. And if we're interchangeable, then you can always offer, there's always more money and more service and more care and more love at state level, which just makes us more dependent on the state. If you just look at
state.
Right, but if you just look at all of the technology, that's liberated women, if strong, independent women that don't need no man, yes, until we need our child rearing grants from the government, because the father is absent. Yeah. So now you need the state to pay for your child. And, that's fantastic because you're strong, independent woman, because you don't know that, because the state doesn't have a face, you think that you're not dependent. But you're very much dependent, except you're not dependent on a person that you're supposed to be in a loving relationship with. You're dependent on a huge machine that doesn't care about you, but it's this fake independence. So I guess that worries me, how eagerly we participate in projects to dehumanize ourselves. And Stella also always says she's a theorist. She can only think up the problems. She doesn't know what the solutions are. And I think that was the most relatable thing I've ever heard her say. I'm a theorist. I can see the problem and I can lament the problem, but still in myself, I can't tap out of participating in the problem. It's just so easy, and especially for an introvert, I don't like people. So the less I need to actually interact with people, if you think I'm not grabbing every new solution with both hands. And yes, I mean, that's aggressively anti-gospel. So that makes me sad. I don't know where it's going to end, and I don't know how to stop this train. And a large part of our identity confusion is from this dehumanization. Because if it doesn't matter that you're a human, then it doesn't matter that you identify as a cabbage, because who cares?
But then there's also not human kind of guidance or older, maybe elders in your community, maybe your parents or your grandparents or your auntie or uncle, guiding you a bit and saying, listen, you're still young, you might be confused.
Yeah.
And giving you reality checks. Because now they're just, they don't know how to Google, so they're backwards. And I'm going to ignore them. And
Jürgen, that's exactly it. That is another area, for example, where technology has stolen from us. Because my generation, I think, was the first generation to grow up with the home computer and everything very fast becoming digitized. So my brother and I, we were the ones who introduced the internet into our house. We had to teach our parents. We had to take their hand and show them this is online banking. Yes, it's safe. No, that's a phishing email. And even here, what has technology done to, especially my generation, but made us believe our parents and our grandparents to be fools, simply because they couldn't keep up with the speed of just online development and apps, and suddenly they have a smartphone and they're sitting there tapping with their little, index finger and you're so frustrated. And then, we enter the workplace and we earn half of what some boomer earns that doesn't know what a PDF is, and this man who's supposed to be my elder, my mentor, the one who has risen and become a managing director of this unit at Sasol, he doesn't know how to convert a Word document to a PDF, or how to save as a PDF. But I'm serious, what has that done to our psychology is my entire generation grew up believing that our elders are idiots just because they couldn't wield a smartphone. But I mean, I don't know half of the plants off by heart that my mom knows. My mom knows all of the Latin names for the plants. I don't. My mother can hear a baby cry and she will tell you exactly what that child needs. Now, I've maybe held a baby in my arms maybe 10 times my whole life, So it's also such a disrespect and such an inversion. And we bought into that lie. We bought into that lie that because our parents couldn't keep up with computers, they had nothing to teach us. And even there, again, the dehumanization of cutting that, how many generations before us learned from their parents, and we were the first generation that was teaching our parents. And what did that do to our relationships and our understanding of what it means to be a human in this long progression of genealogy?
So, Lieschen, your speciality, or some of your speciality, is systems and logistics. Now, AI and technology, right? There's many advances that they've given us, and beneficial to mankind. So, knowing your appreciation of a good, solid system that's efficient and is well thought through, what would you say is taking things too far? You now alluded to this idea of dehumanizing. This we partake in things that make us less human, and we actually want those things. Is that what you would call going too far, or what metric would you try and set to say, okay, cool, technology is great, but this line you shouldn't cross? Maybe that's helpful to think of our own technology use at home, that we can really put helpful guardrails for ourselves.
Oh, that's a question I'm struggling with. I haven't figured it out yet. Jono's last talk that he did at Crux, I don't think he realized how profound his talk was, and it was so much closer to this question, because this was the question that I posed with my talk on my Thursday night, is what is the principle? We can't be Luddites, we can't tap out. Like I said, at some point, if you don't have your neurobucks loaded on your forehead, you are not buying groceries this month. So, what is the principle? And one of my favorite things about Jono is he refuses to give me a principle. Jono he's just not rule bound. He's just not principle bound. It depends. Jono's answer is it depends. And so he was sharing in his talk, I can't remember if you were there. Yes.
Maybe give us context for the others.
So he was talking just about his project for Children's Church, for Holiday Club.
Yes.
And
sorry, so Holiday Club is where during the holiday parents are working, but they have to send their kids to not school, so they have to send them somewhere else during the holidays. So there's churches that have a program during the work hours that usually like from 8 till 1 or something, right? And then, they maybe do some Bible stories and some fun activities. So that's Holiday Club for those who aren't familiar with the concept. Yes. So
his church had just, they were donated an IMAX screen, massive IMAX screen. And so obviously that's the solution. Just make cartoons, make little videos, just show the kids videos and make them stare at the screen for 5 days straight. It's what they do at home anyway. And Jono resisted. There was something that he felt he wanted to do physically. Make a stage and out of cardboard and glue and craft paint, he built a set and with Paul, with lights and all kinds of engineering. They had screens that lit up, and they had levers that you could pull, and a life-size or massive cardboard telephone. And the accidental wisdom in that, because then still the last day they still had IMAX day, where they watched something on the screen, but that balance between knowing when the kids had to touch something and they had to smell the glue and we all know what craft paint feels like on our fingertips. We know that chalky feeling. I know what cardboard smells like when you first cut it. I know what wood glue, the smell difference between wood glue and like a Pritt stick. Yes. And I don't think we appreciate how kids are growing up without any of these sensory memories and things. So where is too far? I don't know. How did Jono find such a good balance between keeping the kids entertained, knowing that they probably don't want at Holiday Club to just sit in front of a TV, even though their little dopamine minds would have been exploding? How much richer was the whimsy that he introduced? How many little engineers did he inspire with his construction? So that is a very, very big challenge for me, because I think I'm a fiscal minimalist too. If something doesn't have to cost money, then it doesn't have to cost money. So all of my hobbies are online because I'd rather build a website that I can use every color I can imagine without having to pay R1 for a splash of paint. So it's so difficult for even me thinking, aren't there any of my hobbies that I could take offline to just become human again, rediscover my muscles and smell and touch and sense. So that's the longest possible way that I can say, I don't know where that line is. I know as a Christian community, I think we have to double check every decision and not just think what is expedient, what is fast and what is cheap, what is digital, especially with how AI is going to help. Because Jono in his talk, he even said a couple of times, we built this, we had to get a friend in to do the voiceover, where you could have just, quickly downloaded an AI voice. Why get a friend in to do the voiceover? Because of the memories that you build and the bloopers that you have to cut out. And it's funny and you laugh and you make mistakes. The AI isn't going to give you memories. So, ek weet nie. I don't know where that line is, but I'm just going to hold on to friends like Jono, and I guess for now I'm just going to do what he does and see if he doesn't tread the line more carefully than I do.
Yeah, I remember the one quote I remember from that talk is he said, "What is a computer if it's not just a box with a light inside?"
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Okay, let's take one of the most complex thing that humans have made and call it a light with a box.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think maybe he inspired the children's kind of wonder again.
Yes.
Like you said, like you have to engage with this like awkward like cardboard. It's kind of it doesn't bend easily to my will. Where like a game, you swipe and the thing happens and it's done. There's cardboard. Oh, now you have to cut it to shape. Oh, but now there's the fold and it's tricky and the scissors is like bending, and or the paint's not the right color, and now you have to make do. Yeah, there's a aspect of engaging with it in a. It's not always that simple. It's not just going to give you what you want, maybe. But then also it's more rewarding, I guess, because there's more of a challenge. How young professional. You need the challenge. Without the challenge, it's not worth it. Okay, so with AI, we often think that we're going to leave the heavy thinking or the working over to, the computer or whatever, the algorithm. Now, there's something called technocracy, where we nearly let the computers govern us. Is it something that we should be scared of it, or is it something that you foresee, or maybe it's already happening? Maybe your comments on technocracy. So instead of democracy, where the people rule, technocracy.
I don't think we'll ever be fully all of us. I'm not scared of being ruled by the machine. I'm scared of the 2 or 3 elites that still control the machine, that then will control us.
The world controller. What book is that? Is
yeah,
it
who controls the controller? Orwell 1984.
Oh,
That's the scarier part, is, just the tiny number of elites that will elevate themselves above this. I am not scared for a singularity where the machine runs away and no one can control it. I'm not convinced in the incompetence of man to let that happen, not even by accident. I can't imagine that man will give power over so easily. Maybe everyday man, you and me, who haven't really tasted ultimate power. But I think a human being that's tasted ultimate power is not even going to make a mistake to just hand it over to the computer. So that scares me, is the trajectory that, because Elon Musk he's a declared technocrat, and his father, that's his whole family history. He was raised to believe that technocracy is the future, and that's where but he himself will not be governed. I promise you that. So
ego is not to be.
After everything I've seen, I'm still more scared of the evil in the heart of man than maybe in the malice of something that's coding itself. I don't think there exists an entity in this universe that can be as evil or dangerous as man itself, not even super intelligent machine.
Okay.
So do I think technocracy will ever actually really be instituted? Jürgen, we can't keep the electricity on in South Africa. So it's really difficult for a South African to imagine being enslaved by the machine when I don't know how to keep my fridge running, or how to have a warm shower because the geyser hasn't been on for how long.
But China can sort us out.
I'm sure. I would say good luck to the East to try and tame Africa. The Europeans, they were able to turn their antelope into horses that they could ride. Good luck trying to ride a zebra. They were able to domesticate their buffalo into cows. Good luck trying to domesticate an African buffalo. All of the animals that they were able to domesticate, we do have an African version for it, a pig, for example. Good luck. Good luck. I would like to see how many generations anybody would ever be able to domesticate a bush pig. Yes, and I think that wilderness is in Africa. I don't think the technocrats and the machines. I was always wondering when Musk was bragging about his self-driving cars, I'm thinking, in Africa, my dude, is your self-driving car going to do a road trip from Cape Town to Cairo through all those border posts, and it's just going to navigate its way through? It and won't make it to Baitbridge. I can tell you, it won't make it to, not in Africa.
It'll get lost trying to figure out the system of Baitbridge.
Have you seen that that End of Days movie 2012 with John Cusack and who else is in it? and he's it's the end of the world, like the Mayans predicted in 2012, and tsunamis and volcanoes, and then they find their way to some ark where all the rich and elite are in this ark, and his family finds his, and then at the end of the movie, again, spoiler alert if you want to see it, but it's like 1,000-year-old movie. But at the end, the ark comes to rest where? On the Drakensberg. And they open up the doors, and the scientists say, this is now the Drakensberg. We are here in South Africa, in the cradle of mankind, and this is where we will start our civilization again. And it's so interesting for me how even in the collective consciousness, people associate Africa and South Africa with, if anywhere is going to be okay when the rise of the robots come, it's probably this country where we don't know how to keep the bathroom light on, you know. So I think we might be okay. I might still be sitting in Africa just watching the show. I'm not sure.
Okay, so you don't see. Okay, so you maybe spoke of technology like becoming so intelligent that it rules us. I was more thinking of us handing over power, and as a, this idea we spoke about earlier of people who can't Google are stupid, and saying, we can't do as crazy maths as a computer can, so we're actually sub-intelligent. Let's let the computer figure out some algorithm to say the best, what is moral, what is true, what is good. Let it decide for us, and then we submit to that. Are you saying the guy at the top he won't have that, his ego or his power or thirst for power or keeping hold of power will not allow him to hand over that key?
I don't think any of our egos will allow us to do that. Not
even
ultimately.
Like the techno bros, hey man, I've got this app that can do this for me, and I'm going to get a 6-pack by...
No, I'm far more convinced by the endurance of human pride than I am by the power of computers to convince us that I mean, if you look now how taboo actually any conversation about even just differences in IQ and human beings are, it's such a taboo topic. We won't even allow ourselves to consider, that I might be less intelligent than my neighbor. The pride, especially when it comes to the pride of intelligence and pride of dominance. And maybe it's just the Afrikaner in me. Afrikaners, we are very dwars in... Yeah. If anything, I cannot imagine an Afrikaner reaching a point where that Wally future, just sitting in the chair, having the artificial intelligence arm feed you your smoothie and put your show on, and you just kind of wobble in that chair. Maybe it's the libertarian Afrikaner in me. I struggle to imagine it. I struggle to imagine that we would reach as a civilization a point where we hand over.
Okay. So I guess there's some hope in that, I guess maybe the computer does figure out a better, more, let's say it, more sane, more stable way to live, but we wouldn't want that. Or we wouldn't want
like I said, the thing that I'm more convinced about is not that civilization endures like it does now, and AI runs it for us, but that we opt out of reality completely. I more can see that we are not seduced by assistance to do our lives, but that we are more seduced to just tap out of our lives completely and go hallucinate in the pod. That I can easily see. The tapping out and hallucinating islands in a pod somewhere. That I'm more scared of. I don't know where that fits in with the technocracy. I don't think I've thought about it enough.
Okay. When you can't sleep at night, you can think about this. Okay. So what is the biggest challenge that you foresee that the normal human experience and indeed the Christian church faces as a result of such technologies or advances or ideas? And what would you say, any ideas on how to combat such advances, like maybe what you spoke of, tapping out of life? That you think that's maybe the most likely and most scary reality that we might be heading towards? What's the, I want to say, the silver bullet, or like how do we prime ourselves to, kick back against that? What's the what story do we tell ourselves to say, yeah, cool, that might be attractive, but I'm not going to go there? Or how do we fortify ourselves against that?
I asked Graham this because Graham did his talk on friendship, and then in the podcast interview, I quoted a proverb from Proverbs 14 at him that says, "Where there are no oxen, the trough is clean, but with the strength of oxen." And I said, but why is there even a second part to that? Where there are no oxen, the trough is clean. Why not just stop there? Isn't that just great? And I think that's the biggest challenge. Like I said, technology enables us these individual lives where we don't need each other. And as much as we miss out on the joy of each other, there's also so much that we don't have to deal with the brokenness in each other, and difficult conversations, and frustrating habits, and difficult personalities. And that is a question that I'm still trying to answer, is the bad of difficult less bad than the great of nice? Now will I rephrase this? I am very aware that I am neurotic. And what neurotic means is that the bitter of bad is worse than the sweet of good.
Or you experience it like that? Or
Yes.
You perceive it as such? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if things were equally good and bad,
You'd
then the
come out.
experience of the bad is worse than the experience of the good. But I see that progressively more in the church, is almost a loss of fitness to deal with difficult relationship, difficult conversations. When you couldn't get away, you would have conflict, and now you have to resolve this conflict because you can't get away. Whether it is you long past you couldn't get in a car and go to a different congregation or a different town, or now there are no bounds, and again, that vicious cycle, the less we have to deal with conflict, the less we are able to deal with conflict, to the point where it's easier to just ignore, block, change congregations, change friendship groups, close your social media accounts, block anybody that you don't want to see this. You never have to have a difficult conversation with an ex. You never have to have a reconciliatory conversation with a friend that you had a disagreement with, because we don't live in the same block or flat together. Sometimes we don't even live in the same town together. So if it gets scratchy, I just won't text you, you won't text me, we'll ghost each other, and hopefully we just drift apart. And the choice, because who chooses the difficult? Who willingly chooses the difficult? And for the church, for us to say, okay.
People who go to gym, sorry.
Yes. Yes, people who go to gym choose the difficult. I think that is why there is like a whole revival in the testosterone bro community, to have ice baths and go running on the mountain at 5, and because there is this need to choose suffering, but to choose relational suffering, I don't know how we get back to that. It's so easy to block. It's so easy to ghost. You just not reply to your friend's text message 3 times, and then by then they get the idea that you're not friends anymore. You never have to explain why, and it's going to get progressively more difficult to not turn all of our churches into seeker-sensitive churches, or all of the churches into places where this is not for your comfort, this is for your edification and your community formation, and here you will learn to be a human. And guess what? Humans poo in the trough, and they knock the trough over, and where there are no oxen, the trough is clean. But here in this church, there are oxen, and this one has that hang up, and this one has gutters full of microplastics, so that's why they're acting like this, and this one is grew up with endocrine blockers, and that's why they're like that, and guess what, you have to deal with it. I don't know how to facilitate that. I don't even know where we begin to get fit in tolerating each other's temperaments that we wouldn't have to tolerate in a digital world.
I guess the family, the nuclear family, you have to, that's kind of like the school, like the kindergarten of dealing with other people you don't necessarily always want to deal with, like if you have brothers or sisters, or maybe you don't get along with your parents, or you know, you're gonna rebel against your parents and they're gonna assert their authority, and you have to, because you're dependent on them and they care for you, and so I guess that's one of the hopes, that the nuclear family, as long as society or civilization persists, there'll be a nuclear family, and then that will be like one of the, like the kindergarten of that.
Yeah.
But like you say, to willingly now, so there you're forced to do it. But as you said, like a church, you're not forced to go to it. You're not forced to be there. So, yeah, okay. So it's maybe the training ground, but it's not guaranteeing that you will want to do that.
And are our churches even places like that anymore? JB also said, you know, what is the difference between a church and a social club? Like, can you point to something that happens differently at church than at tennis or at, I don't know, your whatever volunteer firefighter services or whatever? What do you get from church that you couldn't just get from volunteering to be a firefighter? And until we've figured out what that answer is, and we truly buy into that answer, I think that is a big challenge for modern churches, is what sets a church apart from just a social club, when everybody's so, you can't be offensive, and you have to be inclusive, and you have to be careful, and otherwise people just leave. You won't see them again.
It is often said that the stories we tell ourselves about us as individuals and our situations shape our attitudes and actions. So what stories are we being sold by the culture that you consider destructive?
I used to be the biggest fan of the Enlightenment. I thought that was the West's power. I was so proud of the Enlightenment. You know, we have individualism, and I can set my own destiny, I can set my own goals, and that story has become so destructive. That's why we're so confused about our identity, because we completely bought into the idea that I am the captain of my own ship. I decide my own life. It's only up to me. I only influence me, and I can choose my identity. And I'm grateful for my friendship with Sid Fast, because that's his field of study is the identity in community, the reflection of, do you exist if you are not known? Can you really say that you exist if you cannot see yourself reflected in others and how they react to your actions? And that is a very, very destructive narrative that we've bought into, is that you alone have the right to decide who you are, and that no one can challenge that. If you've decided who you are, what you believed, the truth is in you. Just follow your heart. You know, scripture is so clear that the heart is deceitful above all and desperately wicked. You can know it. And our films, how many of our kids' films have the theme of just follow your heart, just listen to the voice inside. You know what to do. You know who you are. You know you have got it all figured out. That's such an irritating trope now with our heroines. Heroines in movies now. And they're all born perfect. If you look at the new Mulan, the live action Mulan that they've done. Okay. So Disney's animated Mulan, which is the classic that we grew up with.
Moulin Rouge, right?
No, Mulan is the story of the Chinese girl who there's war against the Mongols, and all of the men get conscripted, but there is no boy in her house. So her father gets conscripted, but her father is elderly and he's weak and he can't go. So she decides to disguise herself as a boy and to get conscripted to go to war on his behalf. And in the animation, it is just this klutz of a girl that she's running around trying to hide who she is, but she has to learn these skills. She has to learn how to fight, and she has to work hard to get fit, and she's carrying buckets of water with the men, and she has to learn how to keep up with them. So it's character development. And then they go and do the live action remake. Oh, and it turns out that Mulan was magic all along, you know, and that she has this special thing called chi, and that she's just undiscovered, and it was just the patriarchy that had her convinced that she wasn't ever special, but just by virtue of being a woman, she actually is inherently special. She just had superpowers all along. And you see that in all of our heroines. If you look at Rey from Star Wars, and they're trying to replace Phoebe Waller-Bridge to make her the new what's the Jones? What's the shucks, man? Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Holy moly, my brain's tapping out. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is also, she's just perfect. She's just this perfect archaeologist. No heroine has any imperfections anymore. And I'm starting to see that narrative also really in girls take root, in that the only reason that they're not achieving what they want to achieve or have achieved, or the only reason they're not who they want to be yet, is some form of outwardly oppression. It's just because some patriarchal figure is keeping her down, but she really has magic inside of her. And if the world will just stop saying no to her for anything, then all of that magic will come out. And I think that's also another very negative trope that check just like the last couple of franchises reboots. Go look at what they've done, especially to the female protagonists. They're just these even Rey in Star Wars. I mean, like, you have to train to be a Jedi. Oh no, not Rey. She's just born a Jedi. You know,
Maybe she's born with it.
Yeah, no one trains for anything anymore. Everybody's just born with a superpower, and the only reason your superpower isn't manifesting is just because you're being held down. You don't have to work. So I think those are the two most destructive narratives that we've, Klein, I think, are bought into, in that I'm a complete individual. I get to choose who I am, and anybody that disagrees with that. And not only do I get to choose who I am, but who I really am is incredibly special. I'm the one. Everyone is the one. Everyone is just a magical creature being oppressed by society. And if society would just stop saying no to everything, then the magic can manifest. But the only reason I'm not achieving is just because I'm being held down. I think those are two very destructive, and we get fed it in all of our modern remakes of our movies now.
Is that, if I understand correctly, it's like the the postmodern, or not postmodern, the Enlightenment meeting the Marxism, where like Marxism, everyone's like against you, or there's like power thing against you that you need to break free of, and then the individualism saying like there's something inside of me that's like special. So those two, I guess, blending together.
Yes, it's the enlightenment, in that you are the captain of your own ship. You are the individual that gets to decide for yourself. That then meets postmodernism, where postmodernism is the lens that you can only understand reality through the lens of power. That the only force in this world that exists is power and hierarchy. And where you are is only ever a function of who has power over you. And your only actions are to accept or overthrow. Your whole, the purpose of life is to overthrow. That's what the postmodernist worldview is you exist to overthrow. Otherwise, you failed at your purpose, because then your only fork in the road is you live to be subjugated or you live to overthrow. What choice will you make, postmodern man? And the moral correct choice is to overthrow.
Okay, so earlier or off camera, we spoke about how the gospel, which is, I guess, a means by which humanity is renewed in a moral and an actionable sense, that appreciates good systems and pattern behavior and detail and how things play out. Have you thought of something that's maybe more compelling or more efficient, is maybe the word, to get us to a place where humanity is somehow just more moral than they are now.
Okay, let me understand your question. What do I think is the most efficient way to inspire good behavior?
So, assuming that you've bought into this idea of the gospel, as a Christian, one believes that, the gospel is say the answer that humanity needs. So, we do missions and we prescribe to Jesus as Lord. Have you thought of maybe a system that is different to that, that is maybe better or more efficient at kind of making the curse of the human condition, which is moral failings and anger and hatred, like go away or minimize, that is maybe more efficient or more compelling than the gospel? Or does that clarify, or does it just make the question more muddy?
No, I kind of understand. The curse is not moral failing, exactly. Moral failing is a symptom. The curse is that we've become unhuman. We're not who we were created to be.
Yes.
So our problem isn't that we're bad. Our problem is that we are not human. Exactly. Not in the design. Not if we look at natural law and we look at who we are supposed to be. And that's the relief of the gospel. The relief of the gospel is in that for the first time you have someone, and not just someone, you have the being that you have God that created you, that looks at you, and he starts treating you as if you are that person he made you to be. That is,
I see.
when you come to faith, you are already seated with Christ. You're already in the future while still being stuck in the frustrations of the present. But from God's point of view, what are you talking about? You are recreated, you are regenerated, you are seated with Christ in glory already. Now just act like I know you are. Why do we think our pets have personalities, but we don't expect some random eland in the veld to have a personality?
Because they've been bred like that.
Because we treat them like they have personalities. Like
so pugs don't have personalities? I'm pushing back.
No, but I mean, if it was possible for a pug to live in the wild, let's stretch the imagination to its utmost limit, and we say you found a feral pug somewhere in the wilderness.
Okay, yeah.
It wouldn't be funny, or it wouldn't try to be your friend, or you wouldn't be able to look at a pack of feral pugs and say, oh, that's little lawyer, it's always trying to make peace between those two. Or animals have personalities. Our pets have personalities because we treat them like they have personalities. We treat them like we treat them like, we speak to them and we're convinced that they understand language, when really all they're hearing is blah, 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 peanut, blah, blah, peanut, blah, blah. And then we tell our friends these stories about how this dog understands every word. Everyone becomes who you treat them to be. So have you seen couples that also age together? And it's almost like they get more beautiful as they age, because they treat each other, they're so in love that they still see each other as if they're those 20-year-olds. And because they treat each other like they are beautiful, somehow they remain very youthful looking or beautiful looking.
Young at heart and pleasant. And
yes, have you been in a
gracious.
relationship with a difficult person and then just treated them like they are someone you like? And you start liking them and they start reacting like a person that is likable. I've seen parenting strategies like that. Just start treating the child like the leader that you want him to be. If you start assigning to him responsibility, and you don't question it, and he's probably going to fail, but you just say, I trust you to do this thing. I know you're a good leader. You'll figure it out. People start acting how we expect them, or how they pick up, we expect them to act. In the same way, what is stopping missing the target in our relationship with God? Because that's all that sin is. It's a transgression. He wants us to be who he knows we are, and we miss it. We act how we are not. That's the transgression. That's the sin. Is not good or bad, but it's like, why are you acting like this? This isn't who you are. I've created you. You're better than this. You're my child. You're a saint. You're seated with Christ. You don't have to act like this. You're not like this. You're acting so weird. Why are you not acting like you are? And that's the joy of the gospel. Is not in that I am now able to be good. The joy is I'm now able to be free. I'm now able to be who I am, who I'm created to be. And the more that God treats me like that, the more I become like that. That's how we transform in relationship with him. Because if we see ourselves through his eyes every day, and he's like, just stop being weird, man. Stop lying. You don't have to lie. You're not a liar. You're a saint. You don't have to lose your temper. I didn't create you to be the kind of person that loses your temper. What are you doing? You're acting weird. Stop being angry. You're a saint. Stop being jealous. Or why are you envious? This is so weird. I didn't create you to be envious. And now that you are free to be who you are, it's so odd that you are envious. And once you see God looking at you like, why are you acting weird? You realize, why am I acting weird? I'm not a jealous person. I don't have to be like this. I can be who I really am. So what am I trying to say? It's not what is the most compelling or efficient way to make people be good, but it's rather the gospel is the only way to show people who they really are, and to make them understand for the first time that they don't have to be like that. We don't have to be like that. All of those sins, all of those things that you're ashamed about, all of the times that you've hurt someone, all of the times that you've missed the mark, that for me was the gospel, was the revelation of, I'm acting weird. I'm a saint. Like I'm seated with Christ. I don't have to choose this. And it was the first time that I think I thought of my sins in terms of choice. It's like, why am I choosing to be weird? Why not just be a saint? You know, this is who I am. So maybe I think
that nearly then resonates a little bit with the kind of the on the inside of me is this good person that needs to come out, but in a different, it takes a different slant at it, because it says, you were created to be better or to be human, but you're not going to find it on the inside. It's like that external, affirmation has to come from a, let's say, morally perfect being to actually be believable.
Yes. And it's not such a weird concept for us. Like, we'll hear in romantic comedies or romantic movies or things, girls, like the character will say, I didn't know I was lovable until I've met someone who loved me.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's just the gospel. Like, I didn't know I could be free from sin until I met somebody that looked at me like I didn't have sin. And until you've seen yourself as God sees you, nothing will work. Because you didn't know that you didn't have to until you looked at somebody, until somebody looked at you that knew that, what are you doing? I don't recognize you. You're my child. My kids don't act like this. You're being so weird. Stop being weird. I know I've said that phrase like 20 times now, but I kind of feel like that's like the phrase that God uses with me when I know I'm missing the mark. Then he's like, stop acting weird. Just be a saint. Just be who you are.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying you can't conceive of a system or some or other procedure other than, you can't think of something being more effective than that at making us more human. It's a rubbish question.
No, but I understand what you're saying, but I can't imagine anything more effective than your creator reminding you of your purpose.
No, it's good. So no brainwashing program's gonna help us. When you're 5 years old, you plug in some headphones for like 6 months, and you come out the other side a perfect person. That's not gonna work.
No, our problem isn't that we need to see ourselves good. We need to see God look at us and be pleased. That's what we need. We don't need to be pleased by our own estimation of ourselves. We need to know that our Creator is pleased with us. And He makes Himself pleased with us through His sacrifice.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned earlier when we were chatting in the kitchen, you said how even in nature, this idea of the sacrifice, the scapegoat, so Jesus who is the scapegoat, that like our culture or our natural law requires that. So for instance, if say now in some village, I don't know, 10,000 years ago, someone does something wrong, like retribution is required to satisfy that need for justice. And you were saying that how, if I get the words wrong, please correct me, but how that model is very clear in the gospel that Jesus is the scapegoat or the sacrifice, and that's so it's nearly obvious to human culture that that is what's needed. But Jesus being the scapegoat obviously makes it it raises the stakes or changes the game in some sense. And that we're drawn to that retelling of what we understand to be required, but done on a kind of divine level, in a kind of once for all way. But and you also mentioned how maybe if there's two warring clans or two warring countries, they would swap out sons or daughters to say, I'm not going to attack you because you have something that's precious of mine, my child, and vice versa. And that idea of Jesus coming down to earth, becoming part of humanity, or being among humanity. That's we kind of had that chance, but then humanity obviously crucified him. So it also puts a twist on, and then it shows, I guess, God's grace by, you've now gone and killed my son, but still I will, His grace actually then raises him up, and that's actually our salvation in a weird way. No, I love it when what we see as human experience or know as kind of collectively true, when that points to something in the gospel, and it's just like when those things line up, it's like, yes, of course, it must be, and it just makes it so much like sweeter for me. Maybe some closing comments. I think we're gonna call it a day there, or call it a night. Any closing comments on what was said, maybe on stories we tell ourselves, or what's the hope, or what's the my brain is frazzled.
It's been a long Monday.
I'm trying to think, like, how can one wrap this up? What is something that one can think about culture? Okay, we observe it, we live in it. Okay, we could be ignorant of it, like you mentioned how ignorance is bliss, and maybe that's easier, but some things you just can't unsee. So then either we go and despair, or we say, cool, we have to hope in something. And like, what is that? What is like a good countercultural story that we can tell ourselves, that when we either get engulfed or overthrown or just partake in like culture's lame, I don't know, the internet culture or whatever, when that's so part of like everything we know, what is the counter story we tell ourselves, or the thing we think, or the escape, or any thoughts?
I watched the first Jurassic Park yesterday again. The only one that matters. The original Jurassic Park. And the line is such a cliche from that movie, but the Jeff Goldblum's character is absolutely shocked but also disgusted by what the scientists had done, thinking that they can just clone dinosaurs and they can put these vicious hunting raptors, these animals that lived in the most brutal time, that are driven by pure instinct to survive. And mankind thinks that they can clone them and put them in an amusement park and just put these lizards in there to be pets.
Okay.
And he says, you can't do this. You cannot tame life. Life finds a way. And it turns out, sorry again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the 25-year-old movie yet. But then exactly, life finds a way, because they thought that they could control the dinosaurs by breeding only females, so they wouldn't mate in the park. But they were missing sections in the DNA strings of the dinosaurs when they tried to clone them, and they supplemented it with frog DNA. But the frog DNA that they chose, they didn't realize that some amphibians, when there is survival pressure, when there is a drought or something that makes not enough of one gender of the frog, then the frogs can change. And so that DNA then goes into the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are under that immense pressure to survive because they can't breed. Some of them change gender and they start breeding in the park. And that's actually the chaos, is they lose control of the dinosaurs because the dinosaurs start breeding in the park and they're wild, and now life has found a way. And it's such a solace to know that life will find a way. In this technocracy, in human beings that think that they are going to be able to subdue mankind with machines. As much as I fear the pod and the eating the juiced cockroaches and, not owning anything and trying to be happy with it, life finds a way. And we have reality on our side. Reality is that this is God's earth. He created this to worship him. Every leaf on your plant in your flat here, everything sings out the glory of God. Every rock, every rabbit, every bird, every bat, every dolphin, every wave, every phase of the moon, every vibration of anything, every human being exists to seek out God and to bring glory to God. And as the dinosaurs will find a way to mate in that park, humans will find a way back to their creator. Cannot control it. There is no way that man will or machine will be able to control it. And that's ultimately the fun part, I think, of dystopia, is knowing that God has set up aha moments. He's setting up little booby traps and little surprises for his enemies that will make us laugh. I'm so amused by this load shedding. I'm so amused by it. Because I can just imagine, our technocratic overlords sitting there rubbing their temples like, how are we going to lock them up if we can't get them to just stop drunk driving? Even in our lawlessness, even through the tears of what crime and corruption does to this country, we find a way of giggling about, do you know who's even more frustrated about the lawlessness in South Africa than the citizens? Is the overlords trying to think how they're going to herd 60 million lawless barbarians into a pod. So I guess that's my word of comfort, is God finds a way to frustrate his enemies that are entertaining and glorious, something to laugh about and something to look forward to see how he's still going to, and how he is daily outwitting his enemies. And that's our hope. Yeah.
Okay. So the God who's wise enough to still, even though it might not seem like it, he's outwitting the people that try to put themselves on top of the pile. And
every day.
You said something that will trigger reformed individuals. You said, man will find their way to God. Sorry, maybe it's just because it's late night.
That's a good point.
Or did you say that on purpose to throw a spanner in the works?
Get engagement. Maybe that's an old holdover from my Pentecostal days.
But I think you're saying the human spirit will triumph, and
there is a yearning. There is a yearning that cannot be suppressed. Again, I hear the reformed people going, "Is there though?" Let's say that God's irresistible call will call out louder than the machines will make us deaf.
That's good. Yeah, that's a hopeful message. Okay, thanks, Lieschen. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your efforts. And I think that was a very engaging and enlightening discussion. I think much to mull over.
Yeah.
And, thanks.